All right, I think we're live. Let's go. Okay, guys, what's going on? I'm just starting the stream off with a bit of energy here. I haven't streamed in a while. I have been off the grid, to put it mildly. So I'm finally back in New York. Super excited to be back in New York. I'm really, really happy. Actually, let's just do this. Let's do this. Let's do an actual face cam moment before the stream kicks off and people start to wander in. I always do this for the people watching the recording. Hello, hi, I'm Gabriel. It's nice to see you again or meet you or all that good stuff. I am an artist. I'm an illustrator. I'm a concept artist, and I do a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people. Most recently, I worked on Disney's Lorcana, and I've worked on some animated shows and some other stuff like that. So I'm just here to stream and share some of my work and some of my thinking online. That's what I do here typically. So let's hop back over. Alrighty, ready, right. I hope the audio's good. Oh gosh, now I'm nervous. All right, now I have to do a quick audio test. Let's see if my audio's good. All right. So I'm just doing a, a recording while we stream just to double check. All right, maybe someone in the chat will tell me if my audio's bad. We'll see. But yeah, we're finally back. I know it's been ages and ages and ages. Although I always found it strange when hey, what up, Keanu? Already someone's in the chat. I always found it strange when people would like apologize, I'm sorry, or they'd say some stuff like that. Um and uh and then I remember just like going live after a while and kind of feeling like, oh man, damn, wait a minute. I feel bad. Like I feel kind of guilty or strange or weird. It was a strange combination of things, and I was like, oh, this is how all those like YouTube bros must feel all the time. Let's see if we can get a bit brighter here. Oh, it's about as much as it'll go. All right. So obviously we're doing some sketching in Photoshop here. So let's take a look at what we got going on. I just started laying down some marks because it's been a while since I've drawn on the Cintiq. I've primarily been on the Intuos while I've been traveling, which has been an interesting development. I know a lot of artists I really admire tend to use the Intuos pen displays, and they love it. So, I figured I'd give it a try. I did a big computer upgrade recently, which was super cool. And that was for the last course I did. I had to get a laptop so I could do it on the go. Oh, I'm glad I sound good, Keanu. That's awesome. Um, and so yeah, so I've been a bit of a mobile boy, if that makes sense. Haven't really been posting anything. Just been mostly spending time with, you know, some people who are close to me and all that stuff. Just been doing a lot. But we're back. We're online. We're on the internet, so we exist again. Because if it's not on the internet, it never happened, right? So we're back again, doing some doodles, doing some noodles. You always got to start with a weird, strange man's face, I guess. And Tanella, hello to you too. Ooh, Kiana said, what specs are you rocking with? Currently, my specs are terrible. I'm on my old computer right now just because I wanted to go live. I was antsy to go live. I'm like, let's go, let's go. So I'm on the old setup, which is a M1 Mac Mini base model, if you can believe it. And for the price, it is one of the best value computers on the planet. It's kind of amazing. So I'm on that right now. But the last computer I got, the one for working on the go, I got a MacBook Pro. I got the M4 Pro 16-inch one. Man, that is quite the machine, I will say. It's intense to say the least. I will say that. And it's been amazing. I have it's weird how you know sometimes you like hit a limit or something with what your computer is capable of, and I have not hit that limit with that computer, and I've tried many things. We got Quill hopping in, Keegan's here. Stream for the boys, exactly. And Jim, awesome. Thanks, Jim. I'm also glad I decided to go live as well. As always, I always make it a point to try and answer every question I possibly can while I'm live and while we're doing stuff. So if you guys have any burning questions about art, about illustration, design, any of that stuff, I'm always happy to talk about that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, and just yeah, really excited to be back here in the city in New York. I love New York so much, and I got a Met Museum membership recently. So It was a weird happenstance how I came to have a Met membership for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But I ended up with this Met membership, and I will say, being able to skip that line is very convenient. So I've been going to that museum a lot, and it's been a ton of fun. So that's just been a lot of fun for me, enjoying some of the greatest art on the planet, like kind of on the daily. It's been a huge blessing. So feeling very fortunate for that. So yeah, life is good on my end. All that good stuff. I want to give a quick shout out to just how much I appreciate the supporters on Patreon. Like, I have not been active for the past couple months on Patreon, and in the Discord space, it's definitely been on the slower side. So I'm just really, really grateful to all the patrons who have just kind of stuck around through that kind of lull. I know it's like super tempting to just kind of hop out, but I'm the people who have stuck around, man. Like, I can't emphasize enough like the impact that has, not just materially, but also just like energy wise. Like, it just gives me a lot of energy and very motivating. And I'm really, really happy that so many wonderful people have stuck around on there. So I just want to say thank you. And yeah, so I've got a little top hat goblin here. Man, it feels great to stream. I gotta say, it feels great to stream. I've really missed drawing. I've really missed streaming, and I've had to take a couple freelance things recently and work on some stuff that have been a little bit of a slog, I'll say. Um, and also there's the whole thing of like Lightbox happened, and I think I talked about that a little bit. But that was a crazy time, quite the ordeal, I think. Uh, but yeah, no need to go on about that. But I learned a lot, that's for sure. Keanu says, kind of an oddball question, but will you give 3D a go? Oh, Keanu, I've given 3D a go. I've given 3D a go many times, and I will continue to try and give 3D a go. Um, what I'll say about 3D is that it doesn't scratch the itch that drawing scratches. And I think that I don't know. I might not have the industry ambition that some other folks do. Like, as a tool in the industry, 3D is almost unmatched. It's incredible what it's capable of doing. Like, it's amazing. Um, but I think that being in that kind of position and like as a concept artist in that kind of position to where you're using a lot of 3D and doing that kind of stuff, like, I haven't found myself really needing it or like burning to use it or unlock what it's capable of. So I will say 3D is an incredible tool, and any students who are trying to improve their illustration and design skills, I think adding 3D to your skill set while you're learning all the other software, man, cannot be beat. Like, I was in an interesting position where when I was learning art, kind of like learning Photoshop was the big thing. Like, if you were learning Photoshop, you were ahead of the curve, you were getting a jump on digital art, you know. And I remember learning Photoshop in high school. I pushed really, really hard to get good at it. I remember watching gosh, I don't know if any of you guys will know what I'm talking about, but like there'd be these Russian guys who were like photo manipulation tutorial. They'd be like, here's how you make look like girls inside the planet Earth, you know, like something like that. And here's how you make look like guy has water coming out of his shirt sleeves or whatever. And I just remember like watching those photo manipulation tutorials and like following along, and they would always do the same thing. They would like finish the art and then they would go to, gosh, where is it? They would go to yeah, they would go to the curves, and they would always do the S in the curves. Like, they would always do that, and they're like, now we make it pop with curves. Like, that was a crucial step every single time. So that was pretty fun. But I remember learning Photoshop back in the day, and that was just like such a revelation because, you know, when you're painting with traditional media, this is gonna come to a shock to a lot of you, but you actually can't mix every single color with red, yellow, and blue. Like, you can't mix every pigment with those three colors. That's a strange, weird thing that we're kind of taught is true, but it's just not true at all. Some pigments you have to just have as pigments, like a neon orange. You cannot mix a neon orange from a yellow and a red like stock. You know what I mean? It's just not possible. So what's interesting is when you're using digital art, you're using light. Light is the medium. So you kind of bypass needing any of the pigments or having to mix the pigments, and you can just choose the pigments that you need for your image. So digital art, there's kind of this crucible that I think a lot of digital artists need to pass through, which is understanding how like the freedom of color is like a blessing and a curse. Like you still need to understand restriction when you're using color when working digitally, because otherwise it'll just be kind of an oversaturated, like non-cohesive mess of an image. But I remember like just going crazy with like the saturation and the color in my digital art when I was just learning, because it's kind of like what everyone does, you know? It's like when you're editing photos on your phone when you're like a teenager, you're just like cranking the contrast, and you know, you're just experimenting and just seeing what looks like what, but you're not necessarily doing it with any particular purpose. So learning that purpose is a whole other thing. Um, but yeah, I think I answered that original question, which was the whole, you know, am I going to give 3D a go? I give 3D a go once in a while. I mean, sometimes what I do is I'll box out some stuff in Blender and then just kind of sketch on top of that. And I think that's like about as much like use I can get out of 3D, and it's still being like useful to me without like a huge investment of time and like learning how all the different things work and getting in nodes and shaders and textures and all of that stuff, learning about materials and, you know, animation and all that stuff. Like I think, you know, that's just not for me, I don't think. At least not right now. And I don't know, I feel like I've always been pretty honest with myself about what I like, and I'd rather become the best guy at what I like and just get paid to do that rather than, you know, do all the things that I think are going to get me work and end up, you know, not actually doing what I got into this business to do, really. So yeah. Um I think 3D is amazing though. One of my mentors and very close friends, Iris Muddy, she uses 3D in a very unique way. She does like VR sculpting. That's the one thing that I am kind of like, you know, excited about. Like I'm excited for that to become more accessible, and for that to be a bit more streamlined, the VR sculpting, because that is, oh my gosh, it's so cool. It's like so cool. I'll have to have Iris on stream one time and have her go through some of her VR work. We actually did. I mean, I'll show you guys this, which is kind of cool. We actually did a. There's this Discord server for the Lightbox Expo community, and we did, just for fun. We weren't trying to win this year. We entered one year to win, and we did win, but this year we didn't enter to win. We just wanted to have some fun together. We did some. We did an entry for one of the paintathons that they have, the Holly Jolly Paintathon. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, here it is. This is the final image. Let's see. I couldn't participate the whole time because I was like, I think mid travel and packing and all that stuff. But I did the base composition and kind of helped with some of the finishing stuff. But it's a really fun. Oh, it's flipped here. It's a really fun image. Essentially, it's like these a couple guys coming across this happy, friendly monkey being with all the babies kind of jumping around. But what's cool about these monkeys is um, if you were to see like the kind of working process, all of these monkeys, except for this one, which I painted this one in, or like a, you know, early on in the process, a lot of the monkeys were actually done in 3D. Like this big monkey was done in 3D with VR sculpting, and a lot of the trees and everything was placed in 3D using kind of VR and all of that stuff. And a lot of the lighting and everything was kind of composited before they did the final paint over. So that was a cool use of 3D that I thought was really interesting. It was a little overkill maybe, but it was just a ton of fun. So that was really cool. Um, there were some amazing entries this year, man. It gets more competitive every single year. But yeah, that piece was sick. Hey, awesome. We got the some boys in. Let's go. Ryan hopping in. What up, Ryan? Yeah, it was a pretty fun one. Yeah, laying out scenes in 3D first is super useful. One thing I'll say about that, well, instead of criticizing the use of 3D, instead I want to share something that like really helped me when I was like learning to draw and wanting to improve, which was, and forgive me, I'll take a break from drawing our top hat goblin. Is there was an era when I was in art school. I went to school for illustration, and let's say I was in a cafe. I can draw it even to this day what the cafe's layout was. It was a really interesting layout. It was like this. It was this cafe. This is like the floor plan, right? And I would always draw myself from like a different angle, like a weird angle, and I would plot out the kind of 3D angle of it all, like when I was like while I was kind of just like sitting there. So let's say I was at a table, I was at like this table here, and I was sketching and drawing. I would plot it out. So I would kind of put the base of the table, I would draw it up, I would put the table in space, I would draw the bench that I would be sitting on and the back post, and here I would be, and I would sketch myself here, with my pencil and my paper, drawing in my sketchbook this very scene. I would like draw this here. And then I would draw, like, there would be a person over here, there would be like a whole bar kind of section, like raised. So it would be a little bit like higher up. It would be like here, that would go across. And so their heads would be a little bit bigger because they would be a little bit closer to the camera, and they would be like on their laptop or something like that. And I would sketch out these different people, and I would do this traditionally, so, and with in pen, so I couldn't really mess up. But I would do like their little baseball caps and whatnot, and I would draw them sitting with their legs kind of splayed here as they always were on these little benches. And then there would always be the counter here. And the counter, there was a part where you could walk through and a part where you kind of couldn't walk through. And they would have the register here. And then through this little area, there was a bathroom back here. Um, and the register they would have in a section here. I remember that clearly. And they would have a bunch of pastries in a glass case here. And I remember just drawing it in person. And I was sitting here, so I wasn't looking from this vantage point. I was just sitting. And doing this on for a while, honestly, pretty much like a daily basis, my perspective got a lot stronger. There'd be the espresso machine here, the giant espresso machine would be right here, and all the cups on top. I would always have so much fun drawing all the cups on top. And there'd always be Harry, who talked like this. His name was Harry. And he'd go, "Oh, hey, Gabe. It's good to see you, Gabe." And if you think I'm joking, go to Norwich, go to Stranger's Coffee, and ask for Harry, because he will speak to you in that exact voice. I went to school in Norwich, England, by the way. So I would always do that, and Harry would be here with his big, fluffy hair. We went to go see Zombieland 2 together one time. I am very good friends with all of my baristas. Thank you very much. Except for these days. I don't know what happened to baristas. I don't know what happened to our world, but baristas are just like so sour now. Like baristas used to be awesome. Now they just like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what happened to our world, but it makes me sad. So there would be tables all throughout this kind of area, and there'd be like a table here and a table there, and there would be all kinds of people sitting. And I remember I would plot it out every time. I would kind of sketch out these different scenes, and the chairs would be here, and the people would be sitting, and there'd be maybe a larger person, sitting with their kind of big legs kind of sort of out and away, and another person, a little small person, maybe two kids would be sitting next to each other, and all of that stuff. It would be so much fun to draw in this way. And then of course I'd do like the floorboards and everything in the end and all that good stuff. And I just learned so much working in this kind of way of sketching out these scenes and these kind of areas and stuff. It would teach me a lot about space and all of that stuff, everything like that. So I think that the use of 3D is not only an amazing time saver, but it also allows you to do things that it would just be almost impossible to do traditionally, right? But I do think that learning to draw and sketch in a more, I don't know, classic way, I guess. Uh, oh, and there was this big orange juice machine in the back, and the orange juice machine would be filled with these oranges, obviously be filled with oranges. What am I saying? But it'd be filled with these oranges, these bright oranges, and there'd be this like churning thing here that the oranges would go through, and it would turn into juice. So remember that. It'd be this kind of back area. And there'd be the menu thing back up here and all that stuff. Anyway, um, but I think that, you know, learning to draw your scenes out in a fun and compelling way, um, where you are able to place objects in space in a way that you're confident about, like it can be very empowering. Because one thing that can be somewhat unintuitive about Blender is that like if you're not careful about like what kind of camera you're using in Blender and stuff like that, your scene can kind of like become something that you don't really know how it got there or how it came to be. Like there's a very big difference between if you're like sketching out a scene, let's say, and we draw like a, you know, a 16 by 9 or something like that. It's a very different thing. Like if you have, you know, someone kind of like looking at you sternly and his two buddies are kind of looking over the shoulder, you know what I mean? And they're sort of like maybe backing up this, maybe it's like kind of an evil guy or something. But there's kind of something to be said for this shot. This is a pretty great shot. It's kind of a bit of a classic strong shot. You know, you get this like everything in threes thing and you get this kind of scale. But with a simple change of like a camera lens and camera placement, what can happen is you can like well, number one, you can go with like that hyper kind of like anime sort of or the hyper perspective. I won't say anime perspective, but they use this kind of shot a lot in anime where it's like, you know, the nose is right here and like the eyes are huge and everything is kind of like warping around the face, you know what I mean? And they're kind of upset. And then like, you know, their shoulders are kind of tiny because their head is so big over here and like the friends are trying to look around, but because again, like the warp is so intense, like they're not nearly as big. Like these are kind of the same archetype of shot, but because of the warping with the camera and like the wide angle or something like that, it's a completely different vibe. So when you're placing scenes out in 3D and you're kind of doing stuff in 3D, like just keep in mind that kind of stuff, like where, yeah, you just like you want to make sure you're in control of the narrative and you understand what you're doing. I have never found that 3D is a, like, and this is my limitation with 3D, right? I'm not saying this is with just a 3D problem, but like I find that I'm limited in 3D, so like I'm not able to express myself fully, and I think that might be what can happen if you like develop your skills in storytelling and illustration like a lot, and then go to 3D and then like not be able to have that same autonomy. Because I know you can control camera lenses and all that stuff, but even then, like you, like it's 3D. It's like it's set in stone. You can't like, you know, warp it and distort it as easily as you can just by drawing it. Also, why am I working in a vertical aspect ratio? What am I doing? Here, let's go horizontal. Bam. All right, that I just rambled forever. Um, Ryan says, hope all is well, dude. All is so well. Life is fantastic. Keegan says, gotta head out. Awesome. Yay for Top Hat Goblin. Looking forward to more streams. Let's go, Keegan. Our resident New Zealander. Ryan says, I'm a barista. Not a sour one, though. Dude, I would love to go into your cafe, Ryan. That'd be so much fun. Homies with all the elderly local folks. This is what I'm talking about. Ryan's an actual barista. He's not some, you know, like angry to be alive individual who like is frustrated. Also, Professor Buck says, holy cow, finally got a stream. What up, Professor Buck? Welcome. Today, we're just sketching some characters for the boys. You know, nothing too crazy. But let's kind of look at our assortment of brushes here. I've been tuning this brush set because it's due for an update in the Discord. I always put my brush pack in the Patreon Discord. This is always a fun one. This is kind of like the one I use for painting a lot, but it's really nice sometimes for like some loose inking vibes. I think it's an angle. Yeah, it's an angle brush though, which makes it a little limited, but it's pretty good. But this one I definitely got from, want to say one of the Kyle Webster packs. And the thing about brushes is, um, you just gotta tune them to what you need. So like understanding the brush engine in Photoshop is really important. Um, I say with extremely limited understanding of the brush engine. I was talking to, okay, so one time I was hanging out with Ahmed Al Duri, and we were talking, and I was trying to get this brush to work, and I was at it for I want to say hours or something, and then Med comes on, and I asked him, I'm like Med, like I'm trying to get this brush to do this thing, like what should I do? And or do you know what to do? And Med was like, oh, increase this on this slider. And I was like, okay, and I did it, and it worked. And I was like, there's no way, dude. There's no way. There's a reason why Med's the goat, man. That guy's got knowledge up the waz, and just a genuinely kind guy. Appreciate that guy. That was cool. It was like a really cool full circle moment for him to come by my table at Lightbox. That was really cool because like he helped me out a lot at a certain point in my like very formative like artistic career. Like he had some really great things to say when I didn't know what to do. This is before he did his course as well. Long before. But yeah, for those of you guys who are joining in now or hanging out, lurking, all that good stuff, I make it a point to answer pretty much every question I get asked. So if you guys have a question, feel free to ask it. Also, I should probably move my camera a little bit over, right? My camera's a little too big. Yeah, that's better. Unless you guys like giant face. That could be good too. Who knows? But yeah, Med's a chiller. That guy rules. This process feels a lot like that one guy. What's his name? Who did a lot of mentoring at a certain point. I don't know if he's mentoring these days. Did all that bird concept art. Kind of reminds me of that process that he used to do. Jim says, my first time seeing your stuff. Can't stop looking at the designs. They're so much fun, dude. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Fun is an adjective that I love hearing about my work. Like, I think that sometimes I think I'm like the edgy artist, you know? Like, I think I'm that guy. I'm just not that guy. You know, like the more time that goes by, I just love like fun, magical, like optimistic stories, and I just love it. I love it so much, man. Like, and of course you can always have some edge in there too, but I just yeah, fun is definitely the thing I'm going for these days. You know, like there are people who are better at the edgy thing, so I just gotta let those people do it. Kind of says, "Wow, you've linked up with Elduri, dude. He's so personable. Really great guy. Ahmed's nice. Cynics is nice. James is nice. If you, it's kind of locked away forever. But if you, there's a stream. I go on one of James's streams, and like I did this design that was so like I didn't notice until the very end, like how. Oh gosh, I can't even say it. I don't know if anyone will. Something I did not intend for it to look like. Let's just leave it at that. What up, Sonny? Just inking up this guy right now. Just doing some sketching and whatnot. But yeah, all those guys are really nice. Steven Zapata's really nice. Steven Zapata was there standing with me the first time I got recognized from like my streams. That was really cool. That was sick. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Because I went over to talk with Steven, and then someone came and interrupted us to talk to me about the streams I do, and I was like, dude, this is a weird moment. I wonder if Steven thinks this is a plant. We've been trying to link up for a while, Steven, because he's in Brooklyn and I'm in Manhattan, so we've been wanting to do something, but it's hard to coordinate and like find time. Same with James. Like James, we're always, yeah, I'm like we always just miss each other. Or like when he's free, I'm busy. When I'm busy, he's free. Like it's one of those things. Do you enjoy painting more than sketching? I'm gonna definitively say I don't know. That's my definitive answer to that question. I do not know. Um, Sometimes I think I like painting a lot more than I do. And sometimes I undervalue and like, yeah, I kind of like underestimate how much I love drawing. Because with drawing, oh, dude, there's just something about drawing. I just can't really put it into words, to be honest. Drawing is like breathing, man. It's just the best. Putting lines down, dude, what's better? What's better than putting lines down? I will say I'm rusty though. I've never felt more rusty than I do these days. I feel like, dude, so much has happened in my life, like that I wasn't ready for. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it is easier to get better at art when you're single. I will say that. And I was single for like 7 years. Uh, I was just super, super picky, and I met the most incredible woman of my life 2 years ago, and we've been together ever since. And it's made it hard to to keep getting better because I get distracted so often. I just get distracted, and I things come up and life stuff and everything like that, and it's a lot. So it's a lot to balance. But yeah, going back to the original question, like I think that I love drawing so much. But painting has its own unique joy and pleasure as well. Like I think that like you can do with paint many things that you can't do with a pencil and sketching. Like a pencil and sketching is kind of it's always going to be like, at least to me, in my way of understanding it. I'm not going to say this is like a blanket statement, but it always feels like drawing is going to be more limited than painting, because with painting you're expressing with like so many different marks and so many different, you know, I guess I don't know, values, and you're treating composition a little bit differently. And if you go to an artsy fartsy school, they'll tell you there's no difference between drawing and painting. And in that way that they mean it, they're right. Like there kind of is no difference because you're just mark making with a pigment of some kind. Um, but in the way that we kind of both know what I'm talking about, I love drawing. Drawing is just so much fun. But I've been taking special care to improve at painting as well, especially ever since I started doing more teaching and more coursework, because people really want to know how to render. Like they really want to know. And teaching rendering to people has been really interesting because I hadn't really done it that much in my work prior. And then all of a sudden, people really needed to learn it. So it was like a interesting thing for me to push my capacity, not only to teach it, but to do it as well. Cause like, you really can't teach what you don't know how to do. So it was like, the ultimate refresher and like push to get back into painting and really improve. I hadn't really painted seriously since probably, I don't know, like, no, I mean, I painted quite a bit in university, but not like where you're trying to really make a painting, just like for fun or for some colors or for whatever. But yeah, painting is cool. There have been a few artists recently that I've admired a lot that have really triggered in me the urge to improve at painting. Like one of them was Friedrich Pio, or I guess I don't know. I'm gonna try to pronounce it in the proper way. Friedrich Pio, who's a French illustrator. It's spelled like Frederick Pilot for us Westerners, I suppose. But an incredible illustrator. Oh my gosh, so good. And he's French, but it's okay. Like it's not so bad. So, you know, it's all good, really. But Like the illustration world in European communities is usually so tight knit. Like I remember talking to an artist at Lightbox a couple of years ago, who she actually came out with a Domestika course recently for illustrate for watercolor illustration. And I was talking with her, and I'm like, it's so cool you're doing traditional art. Like I'm so happy to see it. Blah blah blah. We were talking, and I was like, oh man, there's another French illustrator I love so much. And I was like, Frederick Pilot, I think. And dude, she looked at me like I was crazy because I was, and in the way that I was. And then she was like, Friedrich Bio. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And it turns out he was like helping her with her book. So it's just like, you never know who knows who. Like so many people know people. And yeah, illustration communities pretty tight knit in a good way, I think. Sometimes it can feel like an art community or like the art community, I guess, like feels a little impenetrable in terms of like, how do I get to know better artists? Like, how do I, like become surrounded by like more interesting and more passionate artists? And it's a really tough question to answer because there's no one size fits all thing. And oftentimes, like, you'd actually be surprised at some of the communities you think you want to be a part of, like, you actually really don't. Like, some art communities are really on the negative side of things and, like, kind of a little sort of toxic in a way, like, to me, I guess. Um, but I definitely think that, um, I definitely think that just trying to improve and just having a good attitude and always being open, it helps a lot because it'll just connect you to the people that you're gonna get along with in a good way. Yeah. Also, sending love out to the lurkers. I know you guys are just chilling, probably working on something, probably working hard. Just want to let you know I see you, appreciate you, proud of what you're doing. I'm drawing some kind of strange, like gator creature thing, I think, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely some kind of gator creature who's like kind of lying down, I guess. Let's see. We can probably get some better shapes in here. Definitely got some weirder shapes. What up, Mackenzie? Finally caught a stream live. Yes, you did. Welcome, welcome. Happy to answer any questions and all that good stuff. I'm just kind of hanging out today, really. It's been a long time since I've been able to do like a really satisfying kind of like a long live stream. So I'm just really enjoying it today. I'm just having a good time, drawing some creatures and hanging out. Gosh, already 40 minutes in, if you can believe it. Man, one of the best things I ever did for like key bindings was definitely transfer over the lasso tool to S. Like that was such an important thing, like in hindsight, because man, like dude, having to go all the way over to like the dash key or whatever they have it on was just a nightmare. It was so annoying and like felt wrong because I use the lasso all the time. It's such a powerful tool. Is this only for the boys? Absolutely. Absolutely. Only for the boys, baby. But being one of the boys, it's a mindset. It's not a exclusive thing. It's actually an inclusive thing. Like you're kind of inviting just like a very wholesome vibe out of people, you know? Oh, we got a cooked question here. Let's go. Let's see. Weird question. What is your opinion on originality in relation to art? I feel like some art online is very similar, or young artists end up pursuing someone else's dream slash style. And then they go on to say whether it be overuse of rules or stuff, I sometimes wish people weren't afraid to put out crazy unique stuff. Maybe it's just because of the entertainment industry, but just wondering your thoughts. It's a great question. Let's also make sure I'm catching up with the chat altogether. Keanu also asked, do you think it's more enjoyable to have the ability to draw whatever you want accurately or the journey of getting to that level? Oh, dude, it's the former, 100%. Are you kidding me? But let me continue here. He says, I'm asking because it seems like you are at the level where you can draw anything basically. Absolutely. I love being able to draw whatever I want. It's cool. But a part of the skill of learning to draw whatever you want is sort of being able to learn how to draw anything you want kind of on the spot, if that makes sense. Like that's part of the magic of being able to draw whatever you want is that you're like that journey you're talking to, you're always on that journey or the journey you're talking about. It's like you're always on that journey. Even when you get to the point where you can draw kind of anything, you still are drawing some things for the first time, in which case you're like learning how to draw those things um, in the moment, and that's like a super exciting and fun feeling. Like it never gets old for me. Like kind of drawing new things, trying new things, and all that stuff. It's so much fun. Getting back to the more intense question though, the one about originality and pursuing certain styles that aren't their own and all of that stuff. It's interesting because, oh gosh, man, this is like a really big question, but I'll do my best to give an actual answer. I think like in the past, I've maybe been more likely to kind of give maybe a bit of a cop out answer of like, it depends and this and that and all that stuff. But, I actually do have some opinions on this. And I think that before I say anything, I would preface with letting you know that anything that you want to know, you can figure out. You can figure it out. And you have the capacity to discover and decide for yourself what you think about this kind of stuff. That's the first thing I'll say, because I think that oftentimes goes a little bit amiss when watching streamers and stuff like that. You got to remember, I'm just a guy with a camera who hit go live. Like, I'm not Superman. You know what I mean? um, but I do have opinions on this. So I think that originality can be quantified in so many ways that it's impossible to nail down one definition. But I guess a working definition we'll use in terms of originality is that you are approaching, let's say, a subject matter. Maybe the subject matter is unique, maybe it's not, but in a way that is unique to you. Like you are bringing who you are to the table. Like many people do the kind of like heroine, adventure thing with the like I think like Amy Thompson does these great uh drawings of like her OCs, like the woman in red with the flaming sword and the other woman who's, they have this dynamic and stuff. Like they've got this pretty intense vibe at all times. Like I'm sure you guys have seen this art online by Amy Thompson. First of all, incredible artist and a really unique art journey of how she got to where she was. Her table was also across from mine in the row for Lightbox Expo this year, and I have never been more intimidated in my life. It was so cool. Anyway, she does these really unique characters, right, and in a really fun way and a compelling way. But when you look at it like really closely, like this is all subject matter we've probably seen before. Like, golden, kind of filigreed jewelry and period costume with these little kind of pleats and or whatever these are called. Um, and the kind of like Victorian-esque textile patterns and all that stuff, and like the kind of like red demon armored character with the flaming sword and the kind of demon sword, and it's like we've kind of seen this sort of stuff before. We've seen it a lot, typically like throughout art's history and everything like that. But again, what Amy Thompson brings to these illustrations is not just this, right? It's not just this. It's also like who she is. She's bringing who she is to the table. Like, let's look at this one. This is amazing. I love this one a lot. But these drawings are powerful, and again, it's like the style isn't the most original thing in the world. It's kind of like a mixture of the kind of animation viz dev style, comic art style, and but again, it's less about the look and more about like what are you doing. Also, what I'll say is that when art is done very well, like technically, people tend not to complain. Like they don't really complain about originality that much when art is done really well. Typically, people kind of complain about originality when they're seeing an unsuccessful attempt at a style. Like they're seeing an unsuccessful resolution of a work, let's say. So, if you see someone trying to draw like Nicholas Cole, like this is kind of Nicholas Cole-esque, but maybe it's not like resolving in a very good way. Someone might come and kind of be like, oh, like this person is like copy Nicholas Cole. They're not original, blah, 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 blah. But then you look at Nicholas Cole's work and you look at the work of Disney, you look at the work of, all these animation studios, and you see all of his, influences and references and all of that stuff. So there's that element of it, which is that usually what you want to do is make sure you are present in the work. And while you're figuring out what that is, there is nothing wrong with studying people's style or emulating people's style or trying new things. Like there was a while where my art was looking a lot like Sycra's art. I don't know if you guys remember Sycra. That's an OG art YouTuber, man. Part of the reason why I'm actually streaming and just doing this stuff live and for free for people, because like Sycra was there for me when no one else was when I was in high school. I grew up in Bermuda, by the way, so there was no way I was going to learn how to draw there, except for on YouTube, right? Um, but let's stay on this question because there's more I have to say about this. So the other thing I'll say about this is that there's the one side, which is kind of like actual execution. You want to make sure you're executing well no matter what you're doing. But the other thing, oh gosh, my mind went blank. It was right at the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me in a second. Maybe if I answer more questions, it'll come to me. What's your favorite animal to draw? Oof, that's a tough one. I think the answer changes a lot. Right now, I like drawing birds a lot. Birds are really fun. Birds are a ton of fun. Let's draw some birds. What was the other thing I was going to say about originality in art? Well, this might have not been the thing that I was actually thinking of, but one thing I will say is that uh, it takes time to figure out what you like. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Haha, victory. What I was going to say was that people only know what they know, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. And that seems obvious, but when you're young and you go online, like you haven't been exposed to Gustav Klimt. You haven't been exposed to, like Michelangelo's work. Like maybe you are on the peripheral of your life, sort of, but really you're kind of limited to what you're seeing. And when we think about young people, especially people who are learning today, the image that comes to mind is kind of this image, right? Where you know, it's just kind of like phone time to be on our phone, you know? And there's just a lot of people who are just kind of glazed over looking at their phone 24/7. It includes myself, right? I think I doom scrolled for like 4 hours yesterday. Oh my gosh. One of the biggest regrets of my week, dude. Can't believe I doom scrolled for 4 hours. It was terrible. That's when I knew I'm like, God, I gotta get back to streaming, man. I gotta get back. I can't keep doing this. But if your view is just limited to this, right? Like, because we're living in an age, this is an unprecedented age of information. They're calling it the age of information because you just have all information all the time. Like, I just start scrolling online and all of a sudden, like, I know like 10 things about how to survive in the woods that I didn't know 15 minutes ago. And it just kind of stays in my head and you kind of just know that. Um, and it's an amazing thing of what it's like to be alive right now is there's just all this amazing information out there. But if you're a young artist and you kind of go online, right, certain things are going to appeal to you more than others. So, for instance, if you watch like a shonen anime or something, and that has a big impact on you, just like vibe wise, you're going to associate that style with like being cool. Like when I was young, dude, I thought, because I watched a lot of Bleach, the anime, which, oh, dude, the new season that's come out recently, oh my gosh, insane. Anyway, the I thought that style was so cool. Some of the only fan art I've ever done in my life was of Greem Jow. I remember I traced over my computer screen a drawing of Greem Jow when I was like, I don't know, 13 or something. And it was just the coolest thing ever. I was like, hell yeah, dude, let's go. But that is a style I thought was so sick when I was younger because it was so sick. It was just cool. It was guys with swords. They were battling it out for the fate of the universe. It was awesome. And, you know, people had that association with other shows too and other styles too, you know, whether it's like Naruto or whatever. Or these days, you know, I don't even know what people are watching these days. I don't know what kids are growing up with these days. But like a lot of people, for instance, like if you um, a lot of people don't necessarily watch that many shows, but there's so many places now to look at like certain content. Like I remember there was a certain point in time where like there was this Tumblr look to art. It was like this Tumblr look, and like all the characters kind of had like red noses, and everyone was drawing like OCs in a certain way. And this is like pre, you know, like furry epidemic in the world where um you know, that look was just starting to be developed on DeviantArt, and there was people doing all these cool, sick, like canine drawings and all of that stuff. And I remember that was really influential to me as well. Um, but you may ask, where am I going with this? I don't really know. But what I'll say is that people only really know what they know. So if you are trying to be original, you're going to try to be original in like the sphere that you're in. And when people try to be original, usually the first thing that happens is they do the most generic thing possible because a generic thing, it's like everyone's first idea might look somewhat similar. Like, I'm an edgy orphan who is actually has a dark past, and actually I'm like not very virtuous, and I'm an anti-hero, and I'm this and I'm that. Like, maybe you're drawing that kind of stuff because you don't see that a lot in media necessarily, but it's like that's everyone's edgy first idea. Like that's the immediate thing that people do. Um, and then again, that's just part of growing and learning. Like I wouldn't really pay too close attention to student artists that much because, you know, historically in the past, like they wouldn't really be perceived until they're at a certain level, right? And their teacher would actually like put their work in front of art critics. Like that's traditionally what would happen is like you wouldn't really see someone's art until it was like good, really. So people would just be studying for years and not really being like putting their stuff out there. But these days, everyone's posting all the time, and like people want likes, they want this, they want that. So it's like they're trying and they're doing things that they think are going to get them those results that they think matter. Man, oh gosh, dude. The best thing you can do if you're an artist is just do not chase any of that social media BS, man. Just continue getting good. Just focus on getting better as an artist. The numbers, dude, those will just come, man. You don't even have to worry about that. Just keep getting better. Um, don't worry about your social media following and all that stuff. That's like some hard advice that I would offer anybody. Um, let's see. Oh, someone says, I think all styles are original because even when copying, people still have a unique habit. That's true. That's true. I suppose. I suppose that's true. I mean, that's kind of like a bit of a technicality, though, right? Like if someone's sort of like, oh, you know, it's my own original style because there's always going to be something unique about me no matter what. Like that is true, but it's a bit of like a technicality truth where I don't know if it's like that's going to serve you as like a complete idea. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just saying like that's maybe an element to consider. Um yeah, I gave up on trying to be original like a long time ago, because originality will just find you no matter what. If you just keep pursuing what you like, originality will find you in its own way. That's what I've learned in my own way. Um, Throughout my time as an artist. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, style and originality, it's like these things are strange ideas and it's hard to know what they actually mean. The definition is ever evolving and changing and circumstantial and all of that stuff, you know? Also, it's like, you know, something is copying until it's a genre, right? Like if you worked in the Marvel comic style, no one would say you're unoriginal or that you're copying a style. They would just be like, "Oh, sick." It's like when you're watching a movie, you're like, "Oh, it's a film noir." It's like there was a time when that was an original thing and people were copying it and people were like, "How dare you copy it?" It's like how all the arcane style clones are like hopping up everywhere. Like if you're someone who's worked in production over the past few years, it's like everyone for like however many of those years was like, well, we kind of want to go with the arcane look. Like no matter what they were producing, everyone wanted to go with the arcane look. It was driving me crazy, crazy. Um, but after a while, it'll just become its own style. It'll become its own genre. Like even the Spider-Verse style and the Spider-Verse look, like that whole 2D, 3D look, like that's becoming so accepted and almost a standard. Puss in Boots did it as well. It's becoming a genre. They're calling it the Spider-Verse style, but who knows what it'll be called in a few years when it actually becomes like its own proper genre of animation. Um, I think they're calling it hybrid animation right now, but I could be wrong about that. I don't actually know. Gosh, you guys caught me on one, man. I'm actually like saying some real opinions today. Damn. Yeah. I can't stress enough how important it is to just keep drawing what you like to draw and keep trying to improve in the ways that you can. Like that's like the most important thing ever. Oh, we got an extension of the question. I guess in relation to originality beyond style, how valuable do you think it is to say something unique with your art? It depends on what you're doing. So that's a super easy answer, or super easy question to answer, which is that like if you want everything you make forever to like mean something and be like super serious or like be super important, it's like imagine you put the weight of that like on what you say. Like imagine everything you say has to be super meaningful and deep and like super intense and super like all of that stuff. Like that would be an interesting thing, right? Like that would be an interesting way to live. But, you know, I don't know. I've met people who try to do that and they're pretty cringe in my opinion. Like, in my opinion, the best thing to do is to have a great sense of humor. And when you get serious, it really means something. So let's see. Like you also mentioned, sometimes I feel jaded looking online because I see tons of technically great art, but it kind of just passes through your eyes and out your brain. Yeah, but that's true of all history. You just don't see it on the museum wall because it doesn't stand the test of time. Like the amount of stuff being produced will like exceed the amount of stuff that is useful, especially in art, especially in music, like as well. Like you know how many songs come out every day? Like thousands of songs come out every day. But like you don't know any of those songs. Like those songs don't impact you and they won't be played 100 years from now. It's kind of like, you know, I hear what you're saying though. I hear what you're saying because I remember feeling that way. I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. And like technically good art that is sort of not saying something deeper. I understand that. I for sure understand that. Um, Again, yeah, it's just it's interesting because like let's say you want to be a concept artist, right? You want to be a production artist. Sometimes you gotta just paint like a hangar bay of like a spaceship, and like that's it. That's what they need. They need a hangar bay, and that's what you got to do. So it's like you're not saying anything super unique and deep with your hangar bay. You know what I mean? You can put in some cool ideas in there, and it would be sick, but that's kind of it. And if you're doing kind of like a sort of cheap, kind of cheapy comic, you're just, you know, kind of saying the same thing everyone said a million times out there. Um, And it's you're not contributing anything new. You're just like making, content for people to consume. It's like, you see the same jokes appearing over and over and over throughout history, and the same songs appearing over and over and over. Um, I mean, you got to go with what your goals are for life, right? I think any artist, like any real serious artist, they have kind of an inherent goal, which is that they want to affect people and the way that they have been affected by art. Like that's what I've come to know from doing a lot of teaching and a lot of mentoring is like people really want to positively impact the world. But sometimes it doesn't necessarily look like what you think it's going to look like. Like if I kind of put that pressure of like, you got to say something deep and meaningful, like if you put that kind of pressure on like the Muppets, for instance, like they're the Muppets, dude. They're awesome. They're amazing. Um, so it's like, you wouldn't want to put that kind of pressure on the Muppets, bro, you know? So, but, oh man, yeah, these are tough questions to answer. I think it's important for your art to say something deep and powerful if that's your goal. Your goal is to affect people with ideas that are deep and powerful. Then yes, it is important for your art to affect people in a deep and powerful way. But that's not everybody's goal necessarily, especially not to begin with. Who knows? Um oh, we're popping off now. Oh gosh. Do you think it's an artist should do more than just say something? I mean, well, here's what I'll also say, wild card, is that you say like, do you think it's okay as it is, or do you think artists should try to do more than just make things visually appealing? I mean, well, I'll go right back to that example with Amy Thompson's work, which which is that you first need to solve the visual appeal. Like you got to solve the visual appeal, man. If your stuff doesn't look good, then it doesn't look good. That's just like a fact. But let's look at this one, this image right here. This is a beautiful image. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so beautiful. Wow. It's just drawn very well. Everything's tight. The anatomy's tight. Like everything's correct and just drawn very well. Like great sense of shape and cohesion with the lines and really good values. If you switch to black and white, really clear values. So this is like a really compelling, strong piece. The gesture's good. Everything's good about this. So it's really appealing, but then also like you can just feel that like that is anguish. That's the face of anguish. That's the face of comfort. But it's just like not quite enough. And we all know what that feels like when the anguish is just not quite enough. Like even though someone loves you with like all of who they are, like sometimes they just can't take the pain away. It's bigger than that. Like that's what this image is. And this image wouldn't hit half as hard if it was drawn poorly. So I think a lot of people who are trying to solve for appeal, it's not a bad thing to solve for. Like solving for appeal is good. Like typically, right? You want to you want your stuff to be appealing. Um, because it's just more likely to land. And then you can kind of solve the narrative stuff later. And those skills also grow in tandem and all that good stuff. But I wouldn't worry about it too much, dude, to be honest. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like, just focus on what you're doing, I think. That's the best thing to do, really. Ryan says, out here with the based speech as always. I hope so, man. Candace says it's like giving gold to everyone on Earth. It would lose its value. In a way, in a way. Um, only for the boys, how dare you? Yeah, listen, everyone's one of the boys, really, when we think about it. Mackenzie says, "Do you have any advice on how to make your characters have more unique slash diverse faces?" Absolutely, I can help you with that because if there's one thing I hate, it's how every face looks the same, dude. It's so annoying. I'll help you with that in a second. Also, Jim says, "Do you have a favorite art book?" Oh gosh, that's a tough one, man. I've got a few. One is a complete work of N.C. Wyeth. It's a great book. N.C. Wyeth is an incredible illustrator, golden age illustrator. I have another favorite art book, which is the How to Train Your Dragon art book, just because I love Nico Marlette so much. He's so good. Another art book. I like certain comic books a lot. Like I love Sergio Topi's work, so any of his stuff that he's done is amazing. Um, Yeah, art books, art books. I love all art books, except for the bad ones. I don't like bad art books. Wildcard says, thanks for talking about this. Always great hearing fresh point of views from great artists. Ah, thank you, man. And I'm happy to talk about this, like style and all that stuff. It's a really transient topic and it's hard to talk about. And I don't think we have a complete definition or understanding. So the conversation is always going to be flawed, just because we just don't have like clear ideas about it, really. Sunny says, I feel something fun and heartwarming can also bring the same amount of value to someone, even though it's more simple. Maybe because simplicity is very comforting. Yeah, simplicity is good. Simplicity can be great. It's all about like what you're doing. Like in some ways, like the Miyazaki films, like the Studio Ghibli Miyazaki films, like they're in some ways they're quite simple in terms of like the narratives or like what happens. And it's like oftentimes a little mundane, but it's about what it's saying beyond the mundane that kind of, really uh takes it over the edge, you know? Okay, let's get back to the face question. That's a great question. How do you make your faces more unique and diverse? Well, let's kind of first understand what that question even is. So we've got this word diversity and unique, right? So this is like an interesting set of words here. Because it depends, right? Like if you're, um, yeah. So like if you're looking to have more diverse faces, I would, oof, gosh, here we go. I've entered into the maze of doom. I can't say anything wrong here. Oh God. My intentions are good and I want to help you figure out how to draw better faces and have stronger diversity in your work. And everything I say is with that intention, just so you know. So we're gonna talk about ethnicity a little bit. So like let's take a look at, for instance, like the kind of League of Legends look, right? If you kind of see a character from League of Legends, it's typically now like, super common for every character to just kind of be like strong jawline, high cheekbone, cat eyes character with like really strong eyebrows, you know what I mean? And like a strong nose and a really clear like bulb on the nose and, this kind of very basic kind of angular face. Maybe they have like a dimple, maybe they have like a strong smile or something like that. But you've kind of got this sort of like almost stock face for that kind of stuff. And it's like usually based on this idea of kind of like European appeal. And even the faces that are of other ethnicities usually skew towards European appeal, even within those ethnicities, because you like do get those kind of pointy noses and other cultures and all that stuff. But you see a lot of that, for instance, in like the Riot ethos. Like every character kind of has to be very attractive in this very particular kind of way. Like if you look at, for instance, the the whatchamacallit, the like arcane character lineup, like it's all kind of the same sort of face. Like they've all kind of got the button nose. They've all kind of got that look, except for the villains. Keep in mind, villains are usually the ones who do not have that kind of appeal. Villains are the ones who get the really interesting noses with the really intense bridges or the more kind of sharp beak-like noses and all of that stuff. So if you have taken my character design class, which I run once in a while, you will learn that a lot of kind of like positive and negative character traits have historically been tied to ethnicity. Like Disney will use the ethnicity of people from like the Middle East to kind of characterize a villain. That's very common. And even to this day, people kind of use those markers to kind of mark villainhood and all that stuff. Just kind of have to point that out before kind of diving into this, because what I'd like to see ideally is a little bit more diversity myself, to be honest. Like I'd love to see a bit more diversity among designs. So how do you get more diversity in your characters and a more unique look? I think that it's important to understand the kind of like breakpoints of the face, like and how the face is actually constructed. Because if you don't know that, you're gonna have a hard time, designing characters and whatnot. So the typical, breakdown of a face, this is kind of like very old school. This is kind of how I learned when I was young and I was in high school, which I'm not saying this is correct, but this is just a way of doing it. Is you kind of have the face, right? You draw down from the ears and you connect that to the chin, and you kind of have this sort of head shape, sort of, right? And you have this length, I guess. And what you do is you take that length, oops, and halfway in between, that's where the eye sockets are going to go. And halfway between that and that is where the bottom of the nose is going to be, or whatever. Halfway between that and that is where the mouth is going to be. The eyes are an eye width apart, usually. So, like, you kind of measure out the eye, measure out the eye. That's about the same. And then the center of the eye is usually where the mouth ends. So, like, this is kind of the old school way of learning proportions, right? You draw the lips, draw the nostrils, bulb of the nose, eyebrows follow the eye socket, which would be like this big. Eye sockets are about this big-ish. So you'd follow the proportions of the face. Typically, like male eyebrows will skirt pretty close to the eye socket, even sometimes below. And typically, female eyebrows will go above the eye socket slightly. And don't ask me why. It's one of those common things that just is, and but not always. And this is what we're going to talk about, right? So when we kind of finish with this design, what we end up having is this kind of very generic looking face, but generic to where, really? Because this is not like a Sudanese face, you know what I mean? Per se. Like, we've kind of already put a lot of European features onto this character. So that's not so great. Like, that's not so good all the time, right? You want to have some push proportions. If we were to turn this kind of 3/4 view, like, again, it would be a very kind of generic sort of looking thing where you kind of have this very generic triangular nose and, like eyes that kind of go across, and they've got strong eyebrows, and they have a mouth, and the mouth is here, and, and that's that. And there you go. That's your guy. This is your character. Cheekbones are coming in, and they got ears and a head and some hair. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty generic approach to drawing a face. But again, a very kind of European-esque. I mean, this one kind of a bit different. But what you want to start to look for is the minutia, right? Beyond just the placement of things, you want to look at the shape of things. Like, for instance, noses. Noses come in all different shapes and sizes. Like, you kind of have noses that do sort of come down into more of like a kind of a, people kind of use the word beak to describe it. I think it's a little rough, although it does kind of resemble a beak. So I guess that's sort of somewhat appropriate. Maybe the nostril's a bit bigger on this nose, and then it would kind of go down into the, whatever this is called, I can't remember, and then the mouth would be here or something like that. But this is a nose shape. Like, that's a nose shape. It's not a nose shape. Like, many people have that nose shape. There are also nose shapes where you do have that classic kind of like sloped button nose where, you kind of are closer to that kind of kitten look. And this is usually what people end up drawing a lot of. And there's some people who just can't not draw this way, dude. you know? And they just end up doing this kind of button nose look, but it gets really boring after a while. You could do a really hard bridge on the nose if you want to. And again, have like a really strong shape, maybe a more upturned nostril on this one. And I kind of place this line here oftentimes to indicate the terminator, which is where light turns to shadow. So like the edge of the object, you can kind of add in an extra line there sometimes. And I'm just sketching some of this stuff out to show you just how different these features can be. And the same with mouths, like you can have mouths that are, pretty barren of like depth in terms of lips. Like maybe they have a little bit of a lip and maybe a slight bit of lip on top, but really not that much. You can have mouths that are like really, I guess the term is very like juicy lips, like larger lips, which have a lot more shape and a lot more of like those shapes are kind of like bulging over each other and all that stuff. Like that's another style of mouth. They're both mouths, right? And then the same with eyes. You can have those kind of cat eyes that are, really appealing a lot of the time, and those kind of strong eyebrows. But you can also have more of the like actual round eyes with more of a rounded kind of eyebrow shape as well. And the eyebrow doesn't always extend that far this way. Sometimes it goes really far that way. Sometimes people have a unibrow, like who knows? Um, but these are all just kind of like forms of the face, right? It's nothing crazy. So then when you're talking about diversity among your characters and all of that stuff, you want these things to kind of like feel coherent, right? Let's check in with the chat really quick just to make sure we're not missing anything. Kenya says all the things you said go out the window in modern art. Modern art is this is not illustration or painting, I that like so illustration and painting it's its own thing. Modern art is its own thing. Ryan says dinner for me. It's great to see you stream for a bit. Aw, dude, have a blessed and whimsical night, dude. Hell yeah, Ryan. Villains are always fun, so true. And Professor Buck says, I'm a solo creator with an audience who asks for the stories tied to my characters. Any tips about going past just standalone drawings and concepts? Well. Man, I mean, I'm planning on doing a course in February, March, and that is like right what I'm going to talk about in terms of like visual narrative for character design and stuff like that. Like how to have. Well, that actually ties in with this other question about diversity. So let's keep on this path. So let's say we want a character who, oh gosh, let's just start drawing and see what we come up with here. Like I can draw a very kind of stocky face here. Um, and I can start to kind of imply things with the face. Like, for instance, what I just did was I took this kind of brow area and I really made the kind of top of the eye socket a lot chunkier, added a lot of meat to that area just with like a few kind of lines. And from there, I made the eyes underneath like really tight. You know what I mean? They're kind of like really, they're under there. So there's going to be like a nice cast shadow under the eye that's going to place a lot of like depth to the eye. It's going to add a lot of intense pressure. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do kind of a bit of a wider nose. Um, yeah. And this is like obviously more common for people of color. So we're going to do a wider nose here, kind of a shorter and wider nose. And already you can see that like these few kind of cues for this character are kind of like adding a lot of, I guess the term is ethnic information, I don't know, but it's giving you a lot of information about this character's background, which is hopefully has impact on your story or is tied to your story in an important way. Not always is, but sometimes it is. Right. So we have a big character here. So one thing that when you're doing like really big and intense faces, like you're dealing with a lot of power. Like this is a large, powerful, strong individual, pretty much. So that's kind of what you're explaining here with this image, right? And obviously, we're implying that this is, most likely like a person of color, and like because we want to include more diversity in our stories and have better representation, which is good. It's good to do that. It makes your story more interesting, man. If you have good representation, that's the best reason to do it. Um, and you're not just sticking to the same like European face that everyone else is. And honestly, to be completely honest, we have to stop making that industry standard. Like, if you work in the industry, this is a real thing that happens to people that I know. If you work in the industry, you may come across a company that will give you a chart of a color chart, and they'll say, like, for skin tone, you can't go darker than this. You have to stay within this. You can't do dark characters. They will tell you that because in marketing terms, it won't sell. Like, that is literally a big part of the industry. Which makes me very upset, and which is why the industry is not for everyone, man. And it's not really, honestly, for me either in many ways. But, we do what we got to do for a little while. But yeah, so we have kind of like a very intense kind of larger character here. But staying with that kind of idea of diversity, we can also have like do another kind of version where instead of going for like a big kind of brawn character, we're thinking about doing one that is maybe a bit more kind of like mysterious or concerned, maybe. And there's a lot of things you can learn about like the different aspects of like what you'll see from like different ethnicities in terms of like face shapes and like feature shapes and all that stuff. And it's actually really cool to learn because you just appreciate the world so much more when you learn that stuff. It's really cool. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in improving their art and improving their character design. Yeah, we can do another character. And you can say a lot about a character with like the hairstyle. Like you could have kind of the big kind of thick dreads look. Like those are always really appealing shapes to have. My favorite characters are the ones that are definitely like on the more ambiguous side, where it's like they're not clearly like one ethnicity per se, because like that's ideally the world in which we're moving into, where like there's just much more diversity. Yeah, I'm a big believer in like the oneness of mankind. Like we're all one people working for a better world. Like that's what our hearts want to do anyway. Get a little bit corny on you, I know, but it's what we do here sometimes. We get corny sometimes, and then we have kind of like another more intense face here, but with a different kind of vibe. And then these things really, again, they like differ and change depending on, again, like what kind of ethnicity you're looking at and all of that stuff. And, but yeah, I think diversity, you want to think about multiple facets for diversity because you don't just want to think about like ethnicity, right? Because you have ethnicity, that's one metric, but there's also ideology, right? There's also like intention and goals. So like, what are their goals? What do they want? Like likes, dislikes, all of that stuff. So it's not enough to just do different ethnicities. You actually have to have compelling characters. Like that's a super, super intense thing to do. Like you got to do this, man. Let's see. Fizzyfluff says, "Do you have any advice for better portraying character professions and personalities with their appearance and clothes?" Dude, man, should have taken my last class. I like went so deep into that stuff. I'll give you the quick version. The quick version is that you well, here's the thing is that let's work backwards from what you said because honestly, guys, you can figure this out, right? So, what do we want to do in terms of portraying a character's profession? So, let's think about a profession. Let's work backwards. Um, if you are trying to portray a profession, we got to look at what that is. So, let's say the profession is let's keep it simple. Let's just do blacksmith, right? Super easy because classic fantasy trope. We know it very well. We can just kind of focus on that. So we've named that. So then we got to think about like what is the purpose of a blacksmith, right? Um, they make stuff out of metal, obviously. So make stuff out of metal. In order to make stuff with metal, they have to use tools, oftentimes metal tools. Kind of counterintuitive, I know. Gotta have a metal tool to make a metal tool. You don't have to, but sure as heck makes it easier. So make stuff out of metal, right? And you can do this with any profession. So from that, we kind of know that there are tools of the trade, right? And there's also things that are kind of like about their profession that are kind of dangerous and whatnot. So let's say they're dealing with fire, so they got to worry about fire, about heat and fire. Are there any requirements to doing this job? Yes. Typically, you must be strong. So there's the kind of must be strong. You must be trained to do it. What else do you have to be a blacksmith? It's kind of it, really, isn't it? Yeah. So cool. So let's think about that kind of stuff. Let's break down the elements of what we just talked about into something visual. So we have a character, and let's say we do a character and they've got a big chin and put some hair here, a little ear there, thick eyebrow, all these things that I think a blacksmith would be, right? Give him a little mouth there, some eyes, let's say, and let's kind of give him a sort of a roundish body shape and some kind of short legs maybe. So is this enough for us to understand that this is a blacksmith? Not really. This isn't quite it per se. We need a little bit more. So part of that is, remember we said he's got to be strong. So let's give him some big rippling muscles. Oh yeah. Big old rippling muscle boy. Here we are. So we've got our big rippling muscles, right? But that's also not enough. Not enough, right? Because there are some other things we got to include, which is that, remember, they got to worry about fire, right? So if they got to worry about fire, most likely they're going to be wearing some kind of protection. So first thing what we'll do is we'll kind of do a bit of an apron for this character. We can cinch it at the waist and kind of have it hang down somewhat here, let's say. So you can kind of remove implications of the leg here. Got a bit of an apron. All right, we're starting to look a little bit more like a blacksmith. Let's draw in some pockets for this guy, let's say, right? So they're worrying about fire, which means they probably also have to protect their eyes. This is kind of more of a fantasy trope than a historical trope, but we'll give them some goggles. Gotta have some goggles, right? So now we know they're trying to protect their eyes from goodness knows. And already we're looking a lot like a blacksmith. But even here, there could be some doubts about the profession. They could be an engineer, they could be something else, but we're missing something. We're missing the tools of the trade, right? So one of the tools of the trade, let's just say we have in one hand, he has the tongs, right? So he's got big tongs. Kind of forget how tongs work. It's like on an x-axis, right? Where you squeeze the end and it squeezes the tong or something. Let's just pretend that I know what I'm doing here. So he's got his tongs, and this hand, obviously, classic fashion, gotta have the hammer after I drop my stylus. It's required to drop your stylus if you're drawing a character here. Right? So you could have figured that out. Like, you didn't need me to tell you this. You could figure this out, right? But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to help. I appreciate it. And now you can help someone else in the same way. So now we've got our nice blacksmithing hammer here. Ping, 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 ping. Another thing we can do is, oh my god, these legs are just sticks. It's funny. Give him some big old boots to show he's a working man. He's a working man. Big old boots. Hoorah. So now that is telling you that this is a blacksmith, right? All of this information is really letting you know this is a blacksmith. Another thing you can do is you can add in, let's say like 20% or so. We'll just add in a little bit of like dust and soot. We'll do that on another layer here. Kind of actually, even better. Let's just use a soft brush, soft round. Soft round, guys, gotta get on the soft round train. If you don't know about the soft round by now, might be too late for you. Gonna be real. Add in some soot and whatnot to the hands. These are dirty hands. This guy doesn't have gloves, so extra tough. Can put some around the face. What you can even do is you can even have the kind of like reverse raccoon eyes where it's like they've got soot on their face but not around where their goggles are. That's another kind of classic thing you could do as well, but not necessary per se. And then we can add in some more marks and whatnot. Can even do a little smudge brush here and there for good measure. Oops, did I do that on one? No, I didn't. All right, there you go. And that's how you get a little bit more kind of definition on what you're drawing, right? And this is like drawn very simply, obviously, and you can continue to kind of push this and this you can imply this is a leather smock and it's actually really tough and that the boots are leather and maybe he's wearing leather gloves, and you can continue to add things that'll improve our assumptions about the character, but that's largely how you do it. You got to work backwards, right? And like use your full cognition. Don't just use like, I don't know, impulse of like blacksmith has a big hammer. It's like you got to really know why and think about it and like do it properly, because then you can draw anything you want. Um Jim says, do you still do deliberate studies? Oh, did I ever do deliberate studies? Man, I'm so bad with deliberate studies. I just draw a lot. I just love drawing. Sometimes I do studies, I guess. Depends. If I want to, I do it. But I don't ever do it out of like a compulsion or something. Darlene says, not corny. It's how we start with understanding art history. So true, Darlene. You rock. Ayub says, guess I'm late. Listen, buddy, there is no late. There's only the now. Jim says, a beard is a requirement. Honestly, you're right. And we got OK Plenty. What up, buddy? Good to see you, man. Long time no see. So there we have that. What were we drawing before this? Oh, yeah, we were talking about diversity and ethnicity and all that stuff. Yeah, diversity, that's one to really get down, man. You gotta include better diversity in your art. Otherwise, you're just like everyone else in this world, forgetting how connected we really are. But yeah, I would definitely put more emphasis on improving the diversity in your work, just because we need to see it more. Like we just need to see it more. We need to see people who look different than the classic European face, really. The big pet peeve for me is when you have a lot of diversity, but it ends up just being that same like European standard for what is appealing. That to me, it just bothers me a lot. But hey, who am I? Recently, I've been doing a lot of this kind of nose, which I don't know why, but I just like it a lot. Like I'll do kind of like a meh, I really don't know why, but I just like how it looks a lot. Just like a big old nose. Must be all the birds, dude. Honestly, so true. Oh yeah, we were drawing a bird earlier. Nice. Love birds. Birds are sick. But yeah, learning the classic like Loomis method and all that stuff, it's good, but it's just not going to get you where you need to go ultimately. Like you always got to remember like that is just one face. That is just one look. Faces look so different and the shapes are so different and they're so unique and they're so cool. Like the human face has such a powerful capacity for shapes, man. It's just really great. Spy versus spy nose. Let's go. Those are always funny when I was a kid. Um, I love thinking about like kind of connecting shapes in a face. Like sometimes if I have a character that I'm designing, like what I love to do is like this kind of C shape, because oftentimes like this is sort of ends up being the nose. Um, and then the mouth is kind of here, but then they usually have like a beard of some kind, and the beard kind of connects up. So you kind of have this nice, silhouette that you're kind of returning to, if that makes sense, which is nice. And you kind of have the face, and your classic face. So there you go. All right. Man, these have been some great questions, guys. I really appreciate the questions. I love being able to give you guys answers. I hope they're useful. Um, and yeah. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you guys want to, we have a sick Patreon community on Discord. The Patreon is $3 a month. And what you're doing is you're making it possible for me to host events, plan cool long-term things, short-term things, and get active with that community, which is really fun. I love it. It's great. Um, Bunch of super nice, awesome, compassionate people who are all trying to improve their world building skills and their art skills. We do character design challenges once in a while. We do a bunch of cool stuff, world building stuff, discuss a lot of things, but really it's like people are just sharing what inspires them. People are checking in, sharing about what's got them hype. Just a very, very, you know, like I'll use the term wholesome, but really it's like focused. Like the people in the Patreon Discord are focused. And it's a good focus. It's not like a bad focus. So if you guys are looking to contribute to the stream or to, hop in and join the community side of things, you can do that through Patreon in the description. Totally voluntary, and you don't have to. And you can always just give it a try. I figure it's like $3. It's like half a coffee these days. Not so bad. Scott says, just checked out your Insta. Thanks, man. Yeah, my Instagram, I wish it reflected a little bit more of kind of where I'm at these days with my work. I don't think I've felt like myself on Instagram for, gosh, probably years, to be honest. But I'm looking to change that because I want to be posting more. And again, like my goal is for my work to bring joy to people and inspire people in many ways, in all ways, really. Inspire them to be good in all ways. So, got to stay coherent for sure. Also, stay tuned for the next stream. Might be tomorrow, might be the next couple of days. I don't know. But I'm going to be opening up spots for my next class in February, March. It's going to be another character design class because I just cannot get enough of teaching character design. And it's going to be about narrative and character design. So it's actually going to go over a lot of like comic fundamentals and stuff. It's going to be cool. But yeah, stay tuned. Scott says, last year, the first book in my new graphic novel series came out. And let me tell you, Kidlit publishers think about diversity a lot. Hey, man. Congratulations. That's great. Proud of you for that. Good job. And yeah, diversity is really important. And it's good. It's good for the world. You need diversity. You just need it. It's just good. Especially as our world is growing closer in so many ways. Like we've never been as connected as we are now. So it's like you need to have exposure to people who do not look like you. Otherwise, you're not going to know what to do when you meet those people, man. I've been very blessed in my life. Like I went to an international boarding school. I was very lucky enough to be there on bursary and scholarship, so I was able to go. And man, the being in an international community changes you a lot, and I'm very grateful for that experience because being in close proximity with people from all continents of the world 24 hours a day, it changes who you are, and it like changes how you view the world and people in general. Not everyone's a good person and not everyone's a bad person, obviously, but made me appreciate good people a lot more and made me see the world in an entirely new way, which is important. I wish everyone could have an experience like that, but that's just not where we're at right now. But yeah, it was very impactful for me in a good way, I would say. Definitely impacted my art. Like I think like I inherently tend to strive for diversity for the characters I do. Like it's just kind of like an inherent thing. I don't think about it ever. I just draw characters, and some of them look a certain way, some of them don't look a certain way, some of them look this way, some of them look that way. Like I don't think about it, and I think that's partly why. It's just the exposure of it all. Well, listen, guys, we're coming on to let's see, coming on to hour 40 minutes. How are we doing? How are we feeling? Oh, geez, there's like 30 people watching right now. Goddamn. Well, well, well. Would you look at that? Oh, cool. Someone just joined the Discord. Let's go. Total stranger. Nice. Welcome to the community. Hell yeah. Phoenix Tube says, I admire how you can go straight into sketching. I make the mistake of opening Pinterest and the scrolling begins. Ooh. Well, one thing I'll tell you, in complete honesty and earnestness, is that a part of why I stream is because it just makes me draw. Like I can't just sit on dead air, or I can't just sit on stream and scroll. Like I have to draw. You know, I'm live for art. Like I gotta draw if I'm live for art. So weirdly, streaming for me keeps me way more on it with art than not, and that's actually kind of cool. Like kind of like it. Um, so if you ever feel like you're not drawing enough, I would recommend streaming because boy, will that keep you drawing. And it's just cool to connect with people. I like connecting with people a lot. I kept getting the advice to start streaming from people that knew me. They're like, "You'd be a great streamer," and I was like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah, you'd be a great streamer." I'm like, "Why?" Like, I never understood it, and they're like, "Oh, because you like talking, and you can just talk forever and ever and ever." And they're right. I can talk forever and ever and ever. And streaming ended up being a great fit for me. And I just do it for fun, really. It's not like a career thing or anything. Get to talk to artists from all over the world. It's really cool. That part to me is sick. I have a surprising amount of viewers in like Germany. I found like a lot of German viewership, which was kind of sick. I've had like I think every time I've ran a class, I've had like one or two Germans, and yeah, it's really interesting. Oh my gosh, we don't get political here, but I appreciate you getting hype in the chat. Figure drawing. Oh, Calvin. Calvin says represent. Let's go, Calvin. Let's go. Boo AI Pinterest. Oh, yeah. I mean, the internet's just filled with AI now. Man, one of the most heartbreaking things I saw recently was the Muka Museum um, Instagram page posted some Gen AI content that was like supposed to be like Alphonse Muka's work. And it made me so sad and upset. Like, I don't normally pop off in the comments of like Instagram stuff, but I popped off. And it was I couldn't not say something because like the fact that the Muka Trust was posting Gen AI content and then like justifying it just made me so sad. It's like the museums are really should be the last bastion against that kind of BS. But Grim says hello. Hello, Grim. What up, Salmon? Hell yeah. Yeah, it definitely does dishearten when you see like institutions that you trust kind of do things that are confusing. My assumption of what happened is it's just probably someone's nephew like was managing the account, like, oh, let's just get cousin, let's get cousin Ivan to run the Muka Instagram, and then it's like they just post some AI stuff because they think it'll be cool or whatever, and then dude, you should have seen the comments, man. People were pissed. So I don't think they'll do it again. But they also haven't deleted it. Maybe they have now though, but I don't know if they have. Anyway, gosh, Baron of Bees. Let's go. Hell yeah. It's true. Yapping and streaming, they go hand in hand. All right, we've got a pretty compelling face here. This guy's pretty interesting. I like him. I like him. He's nice. So I had this crazy revelation recently, which is that I was that I haven't seen like a piece of Star Wars media in a long time. And what you have to understand about me is I at one point in time could name like every single like gun in the Star Wars universe. Like I had encyclopedic knowledge of the Star Wars universe. I was obsessed. And the recent media has been so bad that it just feels impossible to watch now. And I feel like the best thing I can do for my love of Star Wars is to just stop watching what they make on Disney. Like I just have to stop. Like that's the best thing I can do is just to not consume anymore. And I just it's so disappointing. I think the best versions of Star Wars I've seen, like really, have been like when they give it to really great 2D animating animators and directors. So I should check out Visions. Oh, dude, Visions. That's what I'm talking about, dude. The Cartoon Saloon episode of Star Wars Visions, dude, peak Star Wars, so good. Or the Gendy Tartakovsky 2007 Star Wars. Oh, to die for. My gosh. I want to shake that man's hand. I want to shake the Gendmeister's hand and say thank you for producing the 2000 is 3 or I want to say 7. When was it? It was 2003. It was 2003. So good. Future Drawing says I have a prediction about AI. Higher steam compel more artists to show their work. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with AI? Like, really, who knows? It's hard to say. I think already there's a stronger interest in traditional art. Like, even just already, even among artists, there's a stronger interest. So, I think that's right. I think that it'll continue to develop in that way, in a good way. Um, I think people are starting to realize really what AI can and can't do because it is really limited. Like, it's unfortunately very limited. Uh, and like that's something that is very relevant. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's like artists kind of just migrating away from what AI can do is probably good. You know, like I think we have enough like random, I don't know. Who knows? Sandman says I think Star Wars is being replaced by Warhammer 40K. Yeah, maybe. I know a lot of people are getting into the Warhammer lore these days, which is kind of interesting. Um, I know some, not extensive information. Grim says, then see Star Wars inspired, could give some spark back. Try your own. Dude, I've wanted to do some like indie Star Wars content for a long time. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe one day. Just now that it's owned by Disney, dude, I do not want those lawyers after me, bro. If you do like, you know, inspired by or all that stuff, like you just got to be real careful with those Disney boys. They're out here. Those Disney lawyers keep the lights on. I'll tell you that much. Oh, dude, I love drawing so much. This is so fun and appealing and nice. All right, let's do another face. Yeah, hell yeah. This guy looks sick. This guy's cool. This guy's sick as heck, dude. Let's go. What the frick, guys? This is so sick. Let's do a time check here. Time. Been going for almost 2 hours. Wow. Like the good old days where I used to stream for like 3 hours straight. Anyone as an artist trying junk journaling? I don't know if I know what junk journaling is. Sam says I started watching Warhammer 2 years ago. It all started with the guy called Wes Hammer. Oh, there you go. Yep, classic. Oh my gosh. Here we go. The classic technical questions. I am on a Mac Mini working on a 2012, 2013 Cintiq 22 HD Touch. So it's 1080p. It's an old Cintiq. And I'm in Photoshop. And that's what we're doing today. That's the program. That's what we're doing. Thanks for asking. Hell yeah, Sonny. Let's do another face. I feel like I took a while, like a break for a little bit of like doing female faces, and I don't know why. I think like I just like took a break for a little bit. And I did that a while ago too. Like I remember I realized like my female faces were looking like just how everyone else drew them. And it was kind of getting on my nerves. So I like just took a break for a while from like drawing female faces, but recently I think since I've been doing a lot of like studies and well, not studies, I've been doing a lot of, well, studies not from reference, but like painting studies and trying to improve my painting. Um I've been doing subjects that have a lot more like facets of the face, so like a lot more masculine characters. Um because there's like more, divots in the skin and all that stuff. Like there's more to render, and so like I've been just doing that for a while, but it's been a while since I've actually just drawn some female characters, so we should probably get back into it more. Cintiq plus Photoshop is pro. I guess it is. I guess so. I guess it is pro. I should hope it's pro. Grim says junk journaling is like a scrapbook and a sketchbook had a baby. Oh, interesting. I have not tried that. Simon says I took a break from drawing a man. I feel refreshed. It helped me remember that art is supposed to be fun. Now I'm back. Yeah, break from drawing. It can be good because a lot like sinks in while you're on a break from art. A lot kind of can change and you can learn a lot through the process of just taking a break. I'm glad you had a positive experience. I think if you take a break for art, yeah, the best thing to do is to return motivated. A lot of people like end up feeling like rusty and they like kind of don't feel motivated to get back into art because they feel like they're behind now. But it's important to not let that get to you. Just get right into it. Name three random top tier artists that you like. Well, it depends on your metric, like top comic artists, animation artists, video game concept artists, illustrators, these categories. Also top tier, what does that mean? Skill wise, career wise? So these are tough metrics. Comic artists. Well, what I will say is most recently, my favorite comic artists are 100% Gigi Cavanago. Gigi Cavanago is an Italian comic artist. He's incredible, amazing. His use of color and line, composition, it's all just flawless. Um, Another comic artist I really enjoy. This is a more of a historical comic artist, but it's Sergio Topi, who passed away a few years ago. Had a very long career and a very influential artist in the industry of comics, like hugely important. Also Italian. Ooh, through lines, through lines. Another artist I really love is Cyril Pedrosa, who wrote the comic Portugal and also The Golden Age. Another European artist and really interesting guy. He's an ex Disney artist who is now a comic artist, and he just makes really cool comics. And really kind and nice. I remember I wrote to them when I was in art school, and they wrote back and liked my work. It was really cool. So Cyril Pedrosa's work is really strong, very powerful. What about you? What are your top artists currently? I guess. No, I didn't frame it poorly. Don't worry about it. I'm just being a weirdo guy. Oh, dude, I met the artist for Black Sad at New York Comic Con. Really nice guy. I was just so sad I didn't have time to get anything signed by him. I was in such a hurry. Mike Mignola is really good. I think because I've seen his work so much, I kind of forget how good he is. And like I think that so much of what we like about shapes and comics kind of come from him. It's sometimes like it's like so many artists have been influenced by him. It's again, it's like hard to forget just how much he did for the industry and for like comics and just for style in general in the comic world, breaking a lot of conformity and trying new things. It's always good. Ooh, my arm's getting sore. Ooh, it's a good list. Jorge Jimenez is good. Dan Moore is good. They're all good. Yeah, comic art is cool. Really unique genre for sure. Abe says we're gonna be seeing you often, dude. I hope so. Yeah, I've been traveling for the past few months like nonstop, and dude, it was intense. Just a lot of stuff, like Lightbox finished, and then I was traveling with my family for like a month, because I hadn't really spent time with my mom and sister in like a couple of years. It had been a minute. So we went back to like my old hometown where I was born and like all these other places, and it's really emotional and intense. And then it was the holidays, so I took my girlfriend to Bermuda because I'm from Bermuda, so she went to meet like my whole family and everything, and that was a ton of fun. It was amazing. And now I'm finally back in New York. My gosh, I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be back. And really happy to be streaming, man. It's fun. I'm like hyped to stream. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We've had like 30 consistent viewers this whole time. That's kind of crazy. So really appreciate you guys sticking around and hanging out. I want these streams to be like motivational and have a lot of good info, and like also just something chill you can put on in the background while you're working and stuff. So yeah, really happy to be back and talking with you guys. I'm always impressed with like the caliber of questions and like people's depth online, what they want to know and all that stuff, and it's good. I wish I had something like this when I was learning, like just some guy on the internet just like down to answer any questions you have. Like I wish I had that, dude. All the stuff I had to figure out on my own, man. There's a value in that too, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, definitely beware dependency on like people you view as authority figures. Like, Man, you can tell I'm tired when like I go nonverbal while I'm streaming. Like that's how you know like I'm starting to hit my limit. Um, but yeah, this is a ton of fun. I always really appreciate like being able to come on and talk with you guys. Figure drawing says, "How the heck can you chat while drawing? Your friends are right about you having a flare." I don't know if flare is the right word, but I just like talking. Salmon says it's always interesting to look at how comics are like in each area, like East Korean, Japan, Chinese comics look like each other. Same with American, European comics. It's true. There are some commonalities. It's interesting how, the more time goes by, the more I can look at an artist and just like, I just know if they're French. Like, I just know. I'm like, oh, this artist is French for sure. Or even Italian. Like, I can see it now. It's like weird. I didn't used to be that way. But yeah, it's absolutely right. There's so many elements of like style that are linked to where you're from and all of that stuff and like just what you see when you're growing up and everything. And it's interesting. I think it's very interesting. What up, Varun? Let's go. Yeah, Brazilian artists have a look for sure. Yeah, I got energy, dude, for sure. Ask away, brother. I'm always sad when I realize the Middle East we will probably always be behind when it comes to visual art. You know what's interesting? I met an artist out of Abu Dhabi who, or was it Abu Dhabi or was it, no, it must have been Dubai, who there's a comic studio that started up in Dubai, I think, called Sandstorm Comics. And they've got a bunch of government grants and they're really trying to like influence the comic art industry out there. And I met one of the writers for that studio in the figure drawing from the Society of Illustrators, and I was at New York Comic Con, so I got to meet the whole art team, and they did a great portfolio review and all of that stuff, and they want me to send over some work eventually, but I don't know I don't know if I just I don't know. Um, but bunch of really nice guys and really skilled too. They're like, come move to Dubai. And I'm like, brother, no, I'm not going to move to Dubai, bro. um, but really nice guys. And so, yeah, so I think in the Middle East, like the comic scene, you never know what could happen there. And what's cool about comics is it's a very low budget thing. Like you can kind of just make a comic pretty, the only thing you have to be rich in is time. And a lot of people are. A lot of comic artists start out while working at home, like they're just work a day job and make their comic. And it takes time to get this stuff going, man. It's not easy. Can't expect to just be a successful artist out of nowhere. Like you really got to work at it and you got to go through those paces of, like embarrassingly living at home while you're developing your work and you got to go through that stuff. Man, the amount of industry artists that their parents pay their rent, dude, you would be shocked. You've said, I feel attacked, but you're not lying. Varun says, how do you show structure on faces with soft features, like pretty women or child characters? Usually you're applying a lot to do with light, typically. What up, Patricia? Gabu, that's me. Good to see you. And Taunt says the king has returned with one for the boys. Exactly. It's one for the boys, baby. Exactly. Thanks. Yeah, just sketching this one out. We were talking a lot about unconventional faces and stuff, so I'm trying to really practice what I preach here and try some new interesting looks. Heck yeah. This character's going to go fight a dragon for sure. All right, let's answer Varun's question, which is about structure and faces. So there's this cool thing you can do that I do a lot when it comes to art. This is one technique. You can use many techniques, but when you're working on a simple figure, a simple sketch, right? But let's say I wanted to show that the light was kind of coming from here, per se, and like hitting the circle right here. I might not draw the highlight per se. I mean, I guess I could. I could actually kind of sketch out a little round specular highlight implication or whatever. But what I would add is I would add a very soft line that would tell me kind of where the terminator is. And the terminator, when it comes to value, is where light turns to shadow. So it's that point in which something will turn into shadow. And usually it's the area that's not affected by bounce light or direct light. It'll kind of be in this weird middle ground. So oftentimes it'll be the darkest part of the shadow. And you can add that little bit in to kind of give structure to the face. So if you're drawing a nose, for instance, and I draw the bulb of the nose and I draw the kind of ridge up, and I kind of have the nose shape and everything like that. And the structure is good and a nostril here and this here and all of that stuff. One thing I could do is I could draw the terminator in, right? Just a light line, really light line. And that'll tell you a lot more about this form, right? It's like telling you how things curve over. It's telling you that this is kind of curving up more. There's a more of an angle there. And if I change that terminator, that line, and I go down here, that's telling you about the nose as well. Now you know that the nose is kind of going more sloping down in this direction, and there's more of this kind of shape going across. If I keep it really low to the bottom and all that stuff, again, it's telling you about the light source and everything like that. So having a very simple line doesn't have to be everywhere, but for instance, where the nose, like it's very common to have like that kind of little line here on the nose to show where light turns to shadow. So if you're drawing like a kid's face or something, and you've got, a face that maybe you want to kind of push the cheeks a little bit more, and you've got a little kind of, scruffy nose and, the bigger eyes that kids oftentimes have or something. I'm just really loosely blocking this in. It's very stylized, but it works with stylization especially. Is you can have a little mouth feature. Maybe for the bottom lip, you just put a couple lines, nothing too crazy. But for the cheek on one side, you can literally just have a really light line that kind of just comes around. That's telling you about the terminator of light and shadow, which is telling you this is kind of a more round shape on that side, right? And on this side, it may just be like a really light line that goes along the silhouette potentially. But usually you'd want to say a similar story about the shape on the other side as well. So if you have one line that's showing the terminator of the shape here, you want the silhouette to be showing you that same shape. So a lot of what tells you about structure is the silhouette of a shape and how you're showing light moving across the shape, which could be a subtle line of where the terminator is of light and dark, but not always. And these are some things you can do to improve your sense of structure, because this feels pretty structured. Maybe one here where the nose kind of turns over, right? That feels pretty 3D as a shape, all things considered. It's making me realize I've been so focused on hatching to describe form that I've been ignoring its relation to light on the figure. Oh, dude, absolutely. The way to do this with hatching is very similar. Like you may want to have your hatch lines go with the form, depending on what style of hatching you're doing, but you would want it to go kind of with the form and then kind of cross over. But once you start hatching, you're setting rules about tone and about like form and light that you then kind of have to do in other places as well. Like then you kind of have to do it where there are other shadows and whatnot. And you may not want to do that much hatching for the entire image. And it adds a lot of texture that you may not want because you wanted something more simple and elegant. So a simple, very subtle line to show where the Terminator is can oftentimes be a really great bet. And you can even have it kind of be sort of this kind of like against the chin, and then maybe it goes up a little bit, and then, along the face, something super subtle, like super, super subtle. But you don't have to do that. That's just one way. But the silhouette also does a lot as well. Jim says lines are magical, or our brains. Buddy, ¿por qué no los dos? All right. Why not both? Why not have both? All right, let's take a look at what we drew today. We drew a lot of stuff, dude. We drew a bunch of stuff. Let's see. Let's take stock here. We drew a weird little kid. We drew a funky female character and kind of a portrait view. We drew a funky bearded male character. This is like a very classic Gabriel character for sure. We drew some examples of more diverse faces and of like one particular ethnicity, obviously, but the principle of it all. We examined different forms of different features, different people, and all that stuff. We looked at the construction of the face. We started some sketches we didn't finish. Did a funky bird guy, lizard guy, some weird scratchy guy, and we did a blacksmith character as well. Oh man! And then we also did some. Whoa. We did some examples of like perspective drawing, and I drew the old cafe I used to work in, and did a Top Hat Goblin. Lest we forget, Top Hat Goblin was the OG of the stream for sure. It's the first thing we drew in this on the stream, so gotta honor Top Hat Goblin. It's probably where we'll end it, with Top Hat Goblin on screen. Let's get him over here. Hell yeah, dude. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. All right, I think we're gonna call it here. 2 hours and 20 minutes. Um, um, let's see. What do you guys say before we hop off? Someone said, thanks for mentioning Cyril Pedrosa, Sergio Topi. There's another artist you mentioned, but I don't know how to spell their name. Gigi Cavenago. Gigi, Gigi, and then Cavenago with a C, kind of how it sounds. So good. What up, Nabs? You're hopping in right when I'm leaving. Oh, man. Varun says, likes the texture in Clay's work. Oh, dude, for sure. Yeah, we did some stuff for sure. Patricia says, Scratchy Guy gives me Dark Robin vibes. Heck yeah, dude. Let's go. Top Hat Goblin. Let's go. His Knife Baron-esque Goblin. True, true. Heck yeah. Awesome. Yeah, happy to have you in the Discord, Professor Buck. Thanks for joining. And yeah, this is to anyone who is kind of watching this back as a recording. This is wait, let me get my face up here so you guys can actually see me. I'm a little bit blue because of the blue light of the screen in front of me, but blue all the same. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, it'd be awesome if you liked the video, and definitely comment what you liked about the stream or what you want to learn about more next, or if you want to listen to me talk about a topic. I always take suggestions. So thank you so much for letting me know what you guys want to see. And I'm really happy to be here talking with you guys. If you want to join the Patreon Discord, you can via the Patreon link in the description. Super fun, upbeat community. We do a lot of stuff and just really awesome, cool people. Really grateful for the Patreon support for everyone. Yeah, you guys rule. This is Gabriel signing off for the day, and I'll be back soon. Much love, guys. See you later. Peace.